Aloha and good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, and the time is 9:02 a.m. Will the Committee on Planning and the Economy meeting please come to order? I would like to welcome the committee members who are present in the council chamber. Council members Okimoto, Say, and Wire, and I understand Committee Vice Chair Cordero should be coming shortly. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony in person in the council chamber or remotely on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up. All persons who register to testify in person will be called upon first, followed by those who register to testify remotely. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. For those standing by remotely, please utilize the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. For those joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at a remote meeting to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, if any objections are noted, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Members, please note that item number 2, Resolution 24-120 on page 3 of today's agenda has been canceled and will not be considered. Welcome, Vice Chair Cordero. Moving to agenda item number 1 for action, Resolution 24-119. This resolution relates to the reprogramming of American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, state and local fiscal recovery funds program or ARPA monies in support of hazard pay. Members, we have distributed 2 hand-carried CD1s, one proposed by Councilmember Cordero, OCS 2024-045A/4/30/2024 4:09 p.m. and the other that I proposed, OCS 2024-0461/5/1/2024 1:47 p.m. First, I will defer to Councilmember Cordero to explain her CD1.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in short, it basically amends the amount for hazard pay to $27 million. I do want to thank the Chair, for including more language and including the $27 million to her draft as well. But do you want me to read the whole thing since it is hand carried? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those stairs.
So mahalo, Vice Chair Cordero. It seems that our CD1s are similar and your amendments are reflected in my CD1. My CD1 makes the following amendments. It amends the fifth whereas clause by adding the following. Alternatively, such reprogramming actions may be deemed approved 15 days after notice thereof is filed by the mayor or the city clerk and distributed to all members of the council unless a council member files a written objection with the city clerk prior to the 15th day. Such monies that have been objected to shall be subject to council approval by way of a resolution. It amends the 6th whereas clause by correcting the adoption date of Resolution 23-114. It amends the 8th whereas clause to read as follows. Whereas the city administration to date has reprogrammed approximately $40 million in Tranche 1 ARPA funds for this purpose, and there are currently no additional sources of funding available. It amends the 9th whereas clause to add a reference to Mayor's Message 67-2024, dated April 16, 2024, which relates to reprogramming of approximately $7 million of Tranche 2 ARPA funds for the rental and utility reprogram, and to amend the table thereunder by adding an entry for savings from various Tranche 2 projects with an estimated cost of $7 million. It amends the 10th whereas clause by adding, and funds will be expended by the end of the performance period after revenue replacement. It amends the 11th whereas clause to read as follows. Whereas by way of Council Communication 103-2024, dated April 23, 2024, An objection to propose reprogramming of ARPA funds in Mayor's Message 6770, 2024, was filed with the city clerk and requested the submission of a resolution in support of the city administration's reprogramming request to allow for public discussion on the proposed action in accordance with Section 17 of Ordinance 22-14, and adds a final whereas clause to read as follows. Whereas the council has advocated for the use of ARPA funds to provide hazard pay to eligible city employees and believes it is more appropriate that the $7 million proposed for reprogramming to the rental and utility relief program instead be reprogrammed in its entirety to support hazard pay for eligible city employees. It amends the first resolve clause to change the reprogramming amount to $27 million instead of $20 million, and adding to support hazard pay for eligible city employees thereafter. And it makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. I want to reiterate my gratitude to the city's government employees who courageously perform essential work during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have always supported providing our public servants with pay commensurate with the services they help the city continue to provide to the public during the COVID-19 crisis. My CD1 and Councilmember Cordero's CD1 would dedicate the entire amount of ARPA funds proposed to be reprogrammed, which totals $27 million, to be used as advance payments to the city's other post-employment benefit activity to, among other things, support hazard pay for eligible essential workers employed by the city during the COVID-19 pandemic. This $27 million amount includes $20 million the administration originally proposed to be reprogrammed for hazard pay, and another $7 million originally proposed to be reprogrammed to support the rental and utility relief program. While the rental and utility relief program was a hugely successful program aimed at providing financial support to households at risk of becoming homeless during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the council last supported reprogramming ARPA monies for this purpose, it was anticipated to be the final one, with the program wrapping up as the COVID-19 crisis ended. One of the city's key priorities right now is ensuring we're able to find sufficient funds to compensate our staff for hazard pay. So my CD1 will reprogram, again, the entire $27 million amount to support hazard pay for eligible essential city workers. Members, before I call on the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify in this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else standing by remotely?
Chair, there are none.
With that, we will turn to the administration. Managing Director Michael Formey.
Good morning, Committee Chair Kia Aina, Vice Chair Cordero, and committee members. Mike Formby, Managing Director. Committee Chair, the administration shares in the many reasons that you stated in support of hazard pay for eligible city essential workers, and we support Resolution 24-119. We also have reviewed the CD1s that were filed and stand in support of whichever version the council selects. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Members, any questions for the administration? Councilmember Say.
Madam Chair, would it be possible to have an executive session with the MD to get more of what is really happening as far as the negotiations?
Other members, would you be open to that?
Could we maybe, I'll defer to the chair, but if there's anything that we could be shared on the record first, and then if we need to, but I'll defer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Councilmember Say, is anything legal in nature? I believe I concur with Councilmember Wire. If the managing director cannot divulge anything in confidence, then I think he will let us know that. But I think most.
Well, main thing, we are aware that I wanted to have it confidential at this point in time because you may expose the city to other major liabilities. Thank you.
Managing Director, do you feel comfortable in answering what you can publicly?
Committee chairs, there are certain things I can answer about the current resolution that are not confidential, but if the council wants to ask me questions about the larger hazard pay scenario and how this 27 program would relate to that, that's where I would need to go into executive session because we're still in arbitration with SHOPO and UPW.
Okay, with that, I will recommend that the committee enter into executive session, and then we'll reconvene after.
Chair, is it okay if I request my policy advisor, Jamie Shadell, to remain with us in executive session?
Actually, I will allow all council staff in the room.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just for the record, Chair, that would be Leitani Peltier from our office.
Jamie Shadell from my office.
No one from my office.
Lori Hiroka. And if everybody else, Councilor Mercier, you're offering an motion, right? And I'd like to have a second.
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 Thank you. Okay, if everyone else could exit, and then we'll reconvene soon. Aloha, the Committee on Planning and the Economy is reconvening. For members of the public, as you recall, we convened into executive discussion with the Managing Director's Office to discuss negotiations being undertaken between the administration and our public unions with regard to hazard pay, which results from their services during the COVID-19 pandemic. If there are no other recommendations or questions from the committee members, Councilmember Say.
Yeah, just for the MD, would it be possible that now at this point in time, because we are fiscally strapped by all 4 counties, when you folks go into negotiations for the next round of collective bargaining, that the 4 of you folks stand strong? It's not fair that we have to follow the standards of the floor of the state of Hawaii, where they have all different types of revenue sources. And for us here, it's only real property tax. So what I'm just saying, can the 4 counties be strong as you folks go into the next round of collective bargaining? Managing Director.
Thank you, Council Member. I appreciate that recommendation. Thank you.
If there are no other questions or comments, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-119 be amended to my hand-carried CD1, OCS 2024-0461 /5/1/2024 1:47 p.m. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends the Resolution 24-119 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, as I mentioned earlier, item number 2 has been canceled. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Thank you, Managing Director. For action, Bill 64, 2023 FD1. This bill addresses the regulation of uses through Chapter 21, Revised Ordinance of Honolulu 2021, the Land Use Ordinance. Members, please note that we have posted to the agenda the CD1 OCS 2024-0364 /4/10/2024 4:27 p.m. that was approved by this committee at its meeting on April 4th, 2024, and subsequently postponed in committee. Please also note that as a reminder, and as was done for all committee meetings on Bill 64, roughly 2 weeks before each meeting, I will issue a memo to members about the scope of Bill 64 that will be prioritized and instructions for proposed amendments. As I mentioned, and as detailed in the Council Communication 95-2024 and the posted agenda, at today's meeting, I am prioritizing amendments to public, civic, and institutional uses, which will continue at the next Planning and Economy meeting scheduled for May 23rd. We have already completed industrial, commercial, and residential uses. I am in discussions with the Department of Planning and Permitting with regards to whether we will also need the June meeting to complete the public, civic, and institutional uses. After we complete amendments to the public, civic, and institutional uses, we will move on to agricultural uses and then miscellaneous uses and hope to come to closure and move Bill 64 forward and complete. Just a note, the uses are color-coded in the master use table. Public, civic, and institutional uses are blue. Each use has use categories for public, civic, and institutional uses. This includes assembly, communication, education, government, parks, and open space, and utility. Each use category has land uses for example, assembly that includes small, medium, and large meeting facilities. We have listed on the agenda for council communications related to the amendments to the FD1 version of Bill 64, 2023, that was approved on April 4th, 2024. We have Council Communication 102, 2024, proposed by Councilmember Tupola, which I responded to in Council Communication 119, 2024. My updated amendments can be found in Council Communication 114, 2024, and would overall make clarifying amendments and updates to definitions to try and distinguish similar uses and provide examples for uses so that it's easier for the public to understand what use their use activity would fall under. For meeting facilities, allow meeting facilities in the I-1 district with standards including a 1,000-foot spacing requirement. Not require conditional use permits for small meeting facilities in the resort, business, BMX, and IMX 1 districts. Reduce the maximum size of meeting facilities permitted in the Ag 2 district. Eliminate unnecessary standards and add back standards related to accessory kitchens and expand noise and odor prohibitions to the country district. For cemeteries, provide an option, not a requirement, for cemeteries to obtain certain limited development standard flexibilities via a plan review use permit in the P2 and IMX 1 districts. And as you recall, we recently had a PRU permit for University of Hawaii at Manoa. For parks, add a new use for parks that are not publicly accessible to fill in a puka left by modification of the general outdoor recreation use, which is now a commercial use. Amend the general outdoor recreation use to fill in a puka regarding horse stables. Note that public parks fall under public facilities. For vocational schools, add definitions for minor and major, which may have been inadvertently left out, and allow vocational schools with an agricultural purpose on land zone Ag 1 and Ag 2 district. For communications, my amendments would adopt some, but not all recommendations from industry groups. For utilities, I am not proposing any changes at this time, but will have a discussion to get feedback for future meetings. I will go over these in more detail when we get to discussion, if that's okay with everyone. And for now, I would like to take public testimony before we introduce the administration. So proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Yes, Chair, we do.
When I call your name, please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name for the record. First off, we have Elizabeth Songville, followed by Stephen Walls, Micah Munikata, and Deborah Luning. Welcome.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Songville, and I'm the External Affairs Director for AT&T here in Hawaii. And I'm here speaking today on behalf of AT&T, but also as a member of an informal coalition of telecommunications stakeholders in Hawaii who work together to review Bill 64. As a group, we submitted written testimony today proposing amendments to the communications section. One proposed amendment is related to codifying existing federal law as it relates to certain eligible projects. Other proposed amendments are related to design standards for wireless facilities on alternative support structures. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you so much for your leadership, organizing within your industry. As you can see just by my explanation of what we're discussing today, Bill 64 is a very complicated measure, and as such, we need all the kokua we can get from the various stakeholders. So members, any questions? If not, we're going to move to Stephen Walls.
Aloha and good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committee. I'm Stephen Walls, Deputy at the Hawaii State Energy Office, and I'm here to testify on wind energy generation facilities setback. We have submitted testimony in support with comments and suggested amendments regarding the approach the setback. We have discussed our amendments with the Kahuku Community Association, switching from a flat distance to a multiple of turbine height for wind energy generation facilities, large wind energy generation facilities. And we also have proposed good neighbor provisions similar to noise, odor, and glare that you see for residential, industrial, and nightclub for large wind energy generation facilities, so that the neighbors, residential neighbors, have a better quality of life hosting these turbines. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walls. Yes, wait. First off, Mr. Walls, can I just ask you, so I'm just trying to clarify, and I hope that you also will work on with my staff in preparation for the next meeting, but are you only talking about the minimum distance issue then?
Minimum distance, as well as noise and shadow flicker requirements.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Mahalo for your testimony. Could you just maybe walk through a little bit more in detail the conversations you had with the community association?
Yes, happy to. We visited Kahuku and got the tour from the community association led by Sunny. And we subsequently hosted representatives at the Hawaii State Energy Office for follow-up discussions based on the research that our staff has completed regarding wind energy generation siting approaches across the country. And we found in our analysis that in addition to a minimum distance setback, it's typical to see regulations regarding shadow flicker, which I can explain, and noise. And so we have proposed amendments on those two elements as well. I'm happy to briefly describe shadow flicker, if that would be helpful.
Please, if Chair would entertain it briefly.
Sure.
Mahalo.
So shadow flicker is a phenomenon where the lights flash. So essentially, early in the day and late in the day, wind turbines, as they spin, depending on where the houses are, can create a shadow, a flicker, where as the blade spins, it creates a shadow that passes through the house or over the house. Typically, it's early in the morning and late in the evening, so right when families would be having breakfast or would be having dinner. And if you've seen it in person, I would assume you had a similar reaction to me, which is it would be absolutely maddening to try to have breakfast while that was happening. But so shadow flicker is the shadow created by the wind turbine blade spinning, usually in morning or evening.
Mahalo for that. Appreciate your testimony. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next testifier, Deborah Looning. If you could turn the mic on, you see a red light.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Debbie Looning. I'm here on behalf of Gentry Homes, and I wanted to thank the Chair for keeping us in on the loop on this. Thank you very much for amending your proposed version of the bill to allow community centers within P2 zoned areas within residential communities. We do have a planned project with the U.S. Tennis Association in which a world-class tennis facility will be built within the Ever by Gentry community. And the amendment would allow that project to proceed. We'd also like to suggest, however, that the bill be further amended to encourage more parks in apartment and residential areas within these master planned communities. Many of the parks that we develop currently are within apartment and residential zoned areas. And we aren't sure, but it would appear that community centers would be prohibited on those types of zoned lands within a residential planned community. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Members, any questions? Thank you.
thank you.
And Micah, I'm sorry I missed you. So Micah Munekata.
Good morning, Chair Kiaina, Vice Chair Cordero, members of the committee. Micah Munekata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'd like to stand on our testimony providing comments to this and just provide a little context to our work. We really do appreciate all the effort that's been given to this measure from the council. Chair, you and your staff have provided quite a bit of energy to this important topic that really requires a lot of input from the community. Today I'm speaking on behalf of a group that came together as a result of the deliberations during 2022, an agricultural industry group that really found what was being discussed with land use to be very important to what the future of ag looks like here on Oahu. The group, as our testimony shows, consists of folks that were active during 2022's deliberations. We made a commitment to the council at that point to really go back, take a look line by line, and really provide some of our recommendations for what could really work for agriculture here on Oahu. Those groups, as you can see, represent quite a bit of farmers, our ranchers, member organizations of folks that are the doers in the ag community across the state. Again, not fully inclusive, however, very much so involved and wanting to weigh in. You have a written testimony, and just to provide some general comments real briefly, Chair,
Sure.
we have strong concerns over the encroachment into agricultural lands. We'd like to ensure that our agricultural lands remain in active production and be available for active production. It's extremely important with all the goals that we have here in the state, one of which we find most important, obviously, is to double our local food production. Oahu is quite a great opportunity for agriculture. We have unbelievable agriculturalists across this particular island that do great work. We do think that everyone is vying for very similar land, whether it be housing, renewable energy, and agricultural production, all things that tend to compete when it comes to land use. So when we come forward to you, Chair, on this topic today, and then subsequently with the agricultural uses in the following meetings, it's really coming from that perspective, that lens of trying to protect our ag lands for ag production. So I really do appreciate you taking up this measure. It's been a pleasure working with both you and your staff, as well as some of the other members of the council, and really do appreciate the attention given to the ag community. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Micah. I'd like to commend both Ulupuna Initiative as well as the Hawaii Farm Bureau for all of the hard work over months to put together a stakeholder group on this issue. And I appreciate your recommendations. During discussion on this matter today, we will be posing some questions to the Department of Planning and Permitting. And of course, as you heard earlier, we will be looking at agricultural uses after we complete this. With that, do other members have any questions for the testifier? If not, is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. If there are none, we will proceed on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, yes, we do.
When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts to unmute and begin by stating your name for the record. We have Jay Morford.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. My name is Jay Morford. I'm representing the Hawaii Funeral and Cemetery Association. I'd like to say the HFCA supports the proposed amendments under Council Members Kiaina CD1. We appreciate that. We also would like to thank the Chair and the committee for the added amendment for flexibility and density and height under the PRU process. That's going to help the cemeteries that have been servicing our community for decades, the ability to expand and grow, which right now they may not be able to. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? If not, I'm going to move on to the next testifier. Angela Young, are you raising your hand to testify in this measure?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES, a grassroots movement. Although I did not submit testimony, I will testify So as a concerned citizen of a marginalized neighborhood, I'm very distraught about this discussion. I'm surprised for all the talk about SB 3202 from the state that the state is not here to discuss this issue about land use and creating zones. This discussion should be shared with the state. Creating zones contributes to creating more housing, which affects overall urban and housing development and strategic goals shared by the state and the city. So land use policy making affects marginalized communities with racially diverse demographics that suffer from this.
Angela, are you testifying on Bill 64? What are your
Yes, I am.
What are your specific recommendations for Bill 64?
So for creating zones, right, you have to take into account marginalized communities such as Kapolama, which have racially diverse demographics and minorities suffering from discrimination in home ownership. So in creating zones, I think that there should be a planning process to plan ahead. If the strategic goal is to build more housing, when you're creating the zones, there should be taking into account
Angela, you need to wrap up. Your time is up.
More public housing units is needed and not luxury housing. So thank you.
Clerks, is there anyone else standing by remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Members, today for the administration, we have Alex Beatty. Alex, I'm sorry. Is it Beatty or Beatty?
Like Warren, Beatty.
Beatty. Okay, I know you said like Warren, but Beatty, I'm sorry. I don't know. I forget how to pronounce his last name. Chief Planner, no. What is your title, please?
I'm the chief of the urban design branch. Liz Krieger, who's usually here, is my...
And he is representing the Department of Planning and Permitting. Members, if it's okay, before I entertain all questions by members, I would like to first focus our discussion and questions for DPP by subject, then open it up to any other questions. I will ask questions in this order. First, meeting facilities. Second, cemeteries. Third, parks. Fourth, vocational schools. Fifth, K-12. 6, communications, and 7, utilities. I also wanted to recognize the Director of Planning and Permitting if she wants to also answer questions. Members, overall, my amendments to public, civic, and institutional uses and corresponding conforming amendments make clarifying amendments and updates to definitions to try and distinguish similar uses and provide examples for uses so that it's easier for the public to understand what use category their use or activity would fall under. Starting with meeting facilities. With regarding to the meeting facility use, the current land use ordinance defines a meeting facility as a permanent facility for recreational, social, or multi-purpose use. These may be for organizations operating on membership bases, for the promotion of member interests, or may be intended for community purposes, such as private clubs, union halls, community centers, religious facilities such as churches, temples, and synagogues, and student centers. Meeting facilities are allowed by right in the resort, all business, all BMX and IMX1 zoning districts, allowed with a minor conditional use permit with standards in the Ag 2, country, all residential, all apartment, and all AMX zoning districts, and allowed subject to standards in the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. Bill 64 FD1 proposes to divide the meeting facility use into 3 uses based on capacity: small facilities with a capacity of 25 to 100, medium with capacity of 100 to 2,000, and large meeting facilities with capacities over 2,000. The latter falls under the convention center use in the current LUO. All meeting facilities would require discretionary permits, with small and medium meeting facilities requiring conditional use permits, minor for small, major for medium, and all large meetings requiring plan review use approvals. Previously, meeting facilities, which again was 1 use, not 3, were allowed by right, without discretionary permits in the resort, business, BMX, industrial, and IMX districts. The bill also establishes 4 use standards for all zoning districts, regardless of capacity, related to 1, plans to manage events, traffic, trash, spill, and community complaints. 2, access lane for emergency vehicles. 3, outdoor lighting. And 4, all-weather surface parking. It also provides that in the apartment and residential zoning districts, noise and odors are prohibited between the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. This bill removes or replaces most of the existing use standards in the current LUO. I am proposing substantial amendments to the meeting facility use, including for general use standards, deleting the requirement for meeting facility management plans, as DPP has noted that this is more appropriate as a permit condition. Expanding the noise and odor restrictions to the country zoning district in addition to the residential and apartment zoning districts. Reinserting existing ingress and egress provisions. Deleting outdoor lighting and all-weather surface parking provisions, which are generally already covered in other parts of the LUO. Adding that kitchens are allowed as accessory to the meeting facility, but may not be used to support on-site or off-site commercial activities, which is similar to an existing standard in the LUO that was moved in prior drafts. Clarifying in the definition of meeting facility that meeting facilities may be accessory to a principal use unless expressly prohibited, adding examples of meeting facilities, and adding a cross-reference to public facility. My amendments would also permit small meeting facilities by right, subject to standards, instead of requiring a conditional use permit minor subject to standards in the resort, business, BMX, and IMX 1 districts. Before I explain my amendments relating to the Ag 2 and industrial zoning districts, I want to ask DPP a few questions about discretionary permits. Right now, all meeting facilities are allowed by right in the resort, business, BMX, and IMX districts. Bill 64, 2023 FD1 requires discretionary permits for all meeting facilities regardless of district and size. I am proposing to not require CUPs for small meeting facilities in the resort, business, BMX, and IMX districts, but standards would apply. Do you think medium-sized meeting facilities in the same district should be allowed without a CUP but with standards? I am particularly interested in why we would require a major CUP for a medium meeting facility in resort district, which allows massive hotels with meeting facilities as accessory uses that provide for a capacity well over 100.
We would support that amendment. Bill 10 initially required a minor cup for those uses, and we felt that the accessoriness of meeting facilities for like a hotel use, usually it doesn't have the same acute impacts as a standalone facility. However, these districts that you've listed generally have enough infrastructure to support the uses, so that use in particular. So we would support that amendment.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have any questions relating to what we just discussed on discretionary permits for meeting facilities? If not, I'm going to move on to discussion on meeting facilities on agricultural lands. My amendments, which would add stricter standards for meeting facilities in the Ag 2 zoning district with a maximum capacity of 500 individuals. I did want to note that meeting facilities are currently allowed in the Ag 2 district, and the current LUO does not have a capacity limit on meeting facilities in the Ag 2 district, nor does it have the 51% dedication requirement. These two additional provisions have been added to mitigate impacts to ag uses and make it more difficult for these activities to take place on lands zoned Ag 2. Additionally, of course, compliance with state law is necessary, and special use permits may be required if within the state land use agricultural district. Before we move on to meeting facilities in the industrial zoning districts, I want to ask DPP a question. I think our additional standards for meeting facilities in the Ag 2 district increases hurdles for using land within the Ag 2 district for that purpose. Do you have any thoughts on whether we should completely prohibit all meeting facilities in the Ag 2 district?
Thank you for that question. We feel that the proposed mitigation is probably sufficient to preserve ag uses on ag land and mitigate any potential impacts. As you noted, a conditional use permit would be required, and maybe even a special use permit. I'm also a little bit hesitant about eliminating access to meeting facility uses on ag land when I, as a civil servant, have been to farm union worker halls on ag land and have been to meeting facilities that are directly or adjacently related to ag uses and provide a community gathering space for that community group.
Thank you. Committee members, do any of you have questions on meeting facilities on ag lands? Vice Chair Cordero.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you've gotten to this point about the detectable from public streets or sidewalks as it relates to ag to zoning for meeting facilities. And I was just wondering, because a lot of the streets kind of come up close to, I guess, the fence lines of the properties, if it's detectable from just the fence line of the property, and let's say the meeting facility is a facility close to the fence line as well, how do we, I guess, prohibit that or enforce that or take that into consideration?
Thank you for that. I believe you're asking about the noise and light provisions. So presently we have noise provisions that apply specifically to meeting facilities where we can require sound attenuation. And in those instances where the existing building and there may be expanding, if there is a problem, through the conditional use permit, we can require things like double pane windows, sound attenuating curtains, air conditioning so that the windows stay closed during certain events, or even particular locations for particular noisy parts of that use, like a choir room or something like that.
Okay, thank you. That very much helps to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo. I was just curious if you've assessed or contemplated like the potential misuse, like what comes to mind is say like weddings or other commercial activities and how we could prevent that. I don't know if capacity limitation should be contemplated or welcome your input.
The capacity limitation, I think, is very much sort of a policy question about what size is appropriate for this district. So I wouldn't want to weigh too much on that, but weddings happen at meeting facilities as an accessory use when it's typically a religious type meeting facility. So we would need to be able to assess that accessory use is indeed accessory. It's not something that's happening every single day, all the time, and is the principal use, because that's separate. There needs to be another independent reason for why this meeting facility exists in order for there to be accessory uses. And those accessory uses need to be subordinate, smaller than, less impactful than the principal use.
Okay, Mahalo, appreciate that. Just the chair's question about thoughts. I'm at this point would defer, but still assessing and may have feedback at future time after discussing with the community.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Wire. Again, as I stated earlier, we will minimally have one more hearing on this use, and if we are not completed, then we would go into June. My preference is to get it done at the May 23rd meeting. With that, we're going to move to meeting facilities in industrial zoning districts. My proposed amendments will allow meeting facilities in the I-1 zoning district, but not in the I-2 zoning district, and would add back relevant standards in the current LUO. Members, as a reminder, meeting facilities are currently allowed in the I-1 and I-2 districts, but not in Bill 64 FD1. My proposal is intended to be a compromise. On one hand, meeting facilities may not be appropriate for the industrial district, since typical uses in industrial districts include manufacturing, refining, sorting, processing, and storage of materials and products. The purpose of the industrial districts is to provide areas for industrial uses without undue competition from other uses, and ensuring compatibility with non-industrial areas. The I-2 zoning district in particular is not appropriate for meeting facilities, as it allows for a higher intensity of uses necessary to support industrial centers compared to the I-1 zoning district, which is intended to provide areas for some of the industrial employment and service needs of rural and suburban communities. Additionally, it has historically been the case that the availability of industrial lands is insufficient to meet demand. We heard this from the industry groups when we covered industrial uses, and we have historical data showing low vacancy rates island-wide in the I-1 and I-2 districts. We also know that as we continue to incorporate the TOD plan areas into the TOD special district, we will likely be rezoning existing business and industrial districts to mixed-use districts, similar to what has happened in Kaka'ako, which may further exacerbate availability of industrial lands for industrial purposes. In addition to only allowing meeting facilities in the I-1 zoning district, I am also suggesting we prohibit meeting facilities in the I-1 district from being located within 1,000 feet of another meeting facility, whether the other meeting facility is a permitted use or non-conforming use. Under the current LUO, this standard only applied to meeting facilities in the I-2 zoning district after it was removed from the I-1 district in the early 2000s. Again, while we may not want to completely prohibit all meeting facilities in the I-1 district to balance the need for industrial lands for industrial uses, we do want to minimize the number of meeting facilities in the industrial districts. Another standard that I'm recommending be reinserted is to require the filing of a declaration acknowledging that structures formerly in industrial use may require upgrades to comply with meeting facility regulations, and neighboring zoning lots may by right include potentially annoying or toxic industrial uses at any time. That way, meeting facilities can't interfere with bona fide industrial uses that are appropriate in the industrial districts. Question for DPP, did you have any comments or questions on these proposals?
Thank you for these proposals. I think generally we support the concepts being considered here, and my only concern would be the practical one of creating this many nonconformities in the I-2. I can't say exactly how many there would be, but just from my memory, there are a number of meeting facilities in I-2. So that would be something we would have to figure out how to deal with.
Okay, again, we have minimally one more hearing on this, so hopefully you could provide your recommendations. Members, do you have any questions relating to meeting facilities in industrial districts? Vice Chair Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question for DPP as to why it was originally removed in the draft as it relates to meetings in the I-1? Yeah, I-1 district.
I believe you're talking about in Bill 10?
Yes.
Yes, we were going down this exact same path. I think of like this industrial district is fairly limited. It provides opportunities for the county to diversify its economy. It plays a vital role in a wide swath of our economic activities. There's a lot of pressure on the area to host a variety of uses. So I think we were kind of looking at it in the same light. That's why generally I think we support the intent behind this. Would like to think a little bit more, obviously it got put back in, so we'd like to think a little bit more about how it might impact existing facilities. The I-1 district, I would like to add, is fairly limited in its application, and I'm not familiar with any meeting facilities in I-1. Or there are very few in comparison. But again, it's a less utilized zoning district. I-2 is a little bit more ubiquitous.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask.
Members, any other questions regarding meeting facilities in industrial districts? And I'm going to do a last call for anything relating to meeting facilities before I move to cemeteries, and that relates to general use standards, discretionary permits, and Ag 2 lots, which I previously discussed. Okay, we're going to move on now to cemeteries. With respect to cemeteries, the current LUO allows them in the P2 district by right and in the A2 district with a minor conditional use permit subject to standards. Bill 64 FD1 would continue to allow cemeteries in the P2 district, but subject to standards, and would expand to allow cemeteries in the IMX 1 district subject to standards. It would also continue to allow cemeteries in the Ag 2 district, but with a PRU instead of a minor CUP. And again, PRU is the Plan Review Use Permit. I understand that the rationale is because a PRU allows for certain building flexibilities, but a PRU also requires a higher standard of review. I would note that Ulupono initiative supports this requirement. For DPP, anything you want to share about the rationale behind expanding cemetery use to IMX 1 district?
Sure, thank you for that question. I think we were imagining a type of cemetery that was maybe niche-based, structured, but also had the full array of accessory uses that are somewhat industrial in nature. So we thought that might be appropriate. However, that said, I don't think that we would have a problem with removing it if we're looking to preserve IMX for a more industrial and mixed-use type uses. We are not aware of any cemeteries in the IMX right now, or along TOD lines either.
Is there anything else you want to share for requiring a plan review use permit instead of a minor CUP in Ag 2?
Yes, I think that the PRU, which is typically a much bigger permit, universities, large golf courses and their accessory uses, prisons, these kind of intense institutional uses, requires that the applicant first prepare a master plan. The master plan is a very useful tool for the applicant to consider long-term the viability of the site and how they're going to address the changing needs over time. And I think for us, all of us, how we as a community deal with death and and the things that cemeteries take care of might change over time as well. So having a nice public process, PRU requires a lot of thought. It goes through the city council. Having that public process and having elected officials render the decision, I think, would be quite an elegant way to deal with it over time.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Members, I'm proposing amendments to reinsert descriptive language in the definition and provide an option but not make it a requirement for cemetery owners to obtain certain limited development standard flexibilities by way of a PRU permit in the P2 and IMX 1 zoning districts. The rationale behind this flexibility would be to allow expansion and upgrades at existing cemeteries to bring their operations into conformance. Also, given the lack of available land for cemeteries, especially on Oahu, increased density and building area would allow more concentrated uses, but with the transparency that comes with the PRU process. And members, I do note that the testimony of the Hawaii Funeral and Cemetery Association, which requested density, height, and building area, flexibilities. My amendments would not allow height flexibilities. For DPP, do you have thoughts about height flexibilities for cemeteries? And what is the range of height allowances in the P2 district?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the height in P2 is 15 to 25 feet, so it's a height setback. So if you are setback, I think it's 1 to 2. So if you're setback 20 feet from the yard setback, then you could go up to 25 feet. So basically it's a 15 feet envelope edging up towards 25 feet. That would be the maximum height. Your other question about whether we support height changes through the PRU. I can talk about the experience that we are seeing in some of the cemeteries that we have in town. I think this would primarily benefit a lot of those in-town cemeteries that are a little bit older and are trying to figure out how to perpetuate care for the property. Like Nuuanu Memorial Cemetery is looking to expand their existing facility. It's on a sloped lot, so the lot slopes down, and they have their existing buildings kind of at the top end, back end of the lot. Because of the way that the lot is shaped, they're unable to just extend the existing building without exceeding the height. So in that instance, it might make sense to allow some height variation. That said, P2 is meant to be in town, especially kind of a view corridor and open space preservation. So allowing height changes can really mess with that. Views of the Punch Bowl, just views of the mountains in general would be impacted by heights over 25 feet.
So does DPP have any recommendations with that? Are you recommending to allow for flexibility for the height?
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions on cemeteries or your own thoughts on height flexibilities for cemeteries? Councilmember Say.
Alex, just one question. What about all of these cemeteries that are not in operation, that are not being maintained? What would you like us to do?
I mean, that's a great question, and I am not sure that zoning is going to deal with that scenario, although allowing for changes to building area would allow for continued improvements over time. I can't speak too much to the economics of cemeteries and how they work and how they perpetuate maintenance indefinitely, but presumably allowing improvement over time could extend that perpetual care of the land.
It's just the one, I'll share with you a couple examples. Maybe one for Council Member Cordero, the School Street Cemetery. The one by CVS Longs, or by the Union Shop. That's not being maintained, right? The cemetery on School Street?
They belong to state agency and a city agency.
And then the Pro City Cemetery, where elected officials have been trying to maintain them. I'm just trying to figure out what you guys want to do with these type of cemeteries that are just not being maintained. I know the dead will not be impacted by it, but, for the general public at large, maybe to readapt or reuse the cemetery properties. That's just for discussion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think that's actually a question for all of us to contemplate, depending on who owns the cemeteries. And so, thank you. Members, we're going to move on now to park use. Park use is not currently its own use or defining the current LUO. However, the LUO includes parks in the definitions of certain uses. For example, outdoor recreational facility means a permanent facility for active outdoor sports and recreation other than golf courses, and includes parks as a use, and are allowed within a CUP minor in the P2, Ag 2, Country, Business, and BMX zoning districts, and permitted in the resort zoning districts. Additionally, the public uses and structures use is defined as uses conducted by or structures owned or managed by the federal, state, or county governments to fulfill a governmental function, activity, or service for public benefit. That was a mouthful. I know a lot of the paragraphs are like that, but it's getting a little more dense. Bill 64 FD1 includes a park as a separate use and defines a park as a publicly accessible use, publicly accessible area used for outdoor player recreation. Parks are permitted in all zoning districts except the industrial zoning districts. The bill includes numerous uses that are similar to the park use, including nature-based recreation, general outdoor recreation, meeting facilities, and public facility. The first two are commercial uses. The latter two are also public, civic, and institutional uses. Members, with respect to the park use specified in Bill 64 FD1, my amendments focus substantially on clarifying and distinguishing between the similar uses from each other. It would separate current bill park uses into the bill's park use into two different uses. The first would be non-publicly accessible parks, an area that is not necessarily open to the public for outdoor play or recreation, and two, parks that are open to the public. The non-publicly accessible park use would essentially be allowed in all districts where the current outdoor recreation facility use is allowed, which has been modified and is now commercial use, and will be permitted in the P2, Ag2, Country, B1, B2, BMX3, and BMX4 zoning districts with the CUP minor and in the resort zoning district. Please note, public parks, like our city parks, falls under the public facility use, which is a facility providing a government function, activity, or service in accordance with public policy for public benefit. Question for DPP. Under Bill 64, FD1, and my amendments, we are expanding substantially where private parks are allowed. You can have a private park that is accessible to the public in all districts. You can also have a private park that is not accessible to the public in the P2, Ag2, Country, Business, BMX, and Resort zoning districts. One of the testifiers has recommended that private parks that are not accessible to the public also be allowed in residential and apartment zoning districts. I am not inclined to adopt such amendments to do so, but I wanted to confirm. For recreation centers that have meeting rooms, could that use, depending on, of course, on the specifics of the project under both the current LUO and Bill 64, fall under meeting facilities, which is allowed in residential and in apartment districts with the CUP? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, unless there was a more appropriate use, but if its principal use was meeting rooms and then also had some outdoor play areas, we would consider that a meeting facility.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions on park uses? If not, I'm going to move to some cleanup issues, and one relates to horse stables. Members, as I mentioned, there are substantial similarities between uses, and while working on updating definitions for clarity, I noted that cleanup amendments were necessary to the general outdoor recreation use to ensure it was clear horse stables are included in that use, and standards were reinserted from the current LUO. And if there are no questions on that, I am going to move to vocational schools. With respect to vocational schools, my proposed amendments would add definitions for minor and major vocational schools, which were inadvertently left out in previous drafts. It would permit minor and major vocational schools in the Ag1 and Ag2 zoning districts for schools with an agricultural purpose. And I would also like to propose a verbal amendment that would only allow minor vocational schools in the I1 zoning district, but not the I2 zoning districts. Members, do you have any questions on vocational school uses? If not, I'm moving on to K-12 schools. I am not proposing any substantive amendments on K-12 school use, but I did want to acknowledge testimony suggesting we not allow K-12 school use within the Ag2 district, which the current LUO already allows for. I did want to note that Bill 64 FD1 did add the 51% dedication requirement to ensure that the portions of the zoning lot that are suitable for agriculture are used for agriculture. For DPP, do you have any thoughts about whether we should completely prohibit all K-12 schools in the Ag2 district?
Thank you for that question. Very similar to the meeting facility question earlier. We feel that the proposed standards are pretty sufficient to preserve ag. Also, I've lived in other communities that have ag dedicated schools, and here I could totally imagine Ma'o Farm hosting a school. So there are educational reasons to be on ag land, and I wouldn't want for us to prohibit that.
Thank you. Members, before I move on to communications, do you have any questions on K-12 school uses? Councilmember Say, are you asking about preschools to DPP? The question is, what about preschools?
You mean on ag land? Preschools typically fall under a daycare facility. I don't know that preschools would have maybe the same farm working dedicated educational structure. That said, there may still be some educational opportunities related to being on farmland. I honestly can't remember, and I don't have it in front of me if we allow daycares on ag land, so I don't want to say.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on along to communications. Members, it appears that significant amendments are necessary to update the LUO relating to communication uses, including to address changes in federal law that preempt our regulation of certain structures. Specifically, we have to assess whether or not certain standards and our provisions conflict with the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, which in general provides that no state or local statute or regulation or other state or local legal requirement may prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the ability of any entity to provide any interstate or intrastate telecommunications service. The Act also states that the regulation of the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities by any state or local government or instrumentality thereof shall not unreasonably discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services and shall not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. Bill 64 FD1 substantially overhauls the communication uses, which currently has some overlap with utility uses in the current LUO. As a result of the significant changes made to this section, a lot of clarity is needed so that is more user-friendly for the public. I did, however, include some amendments that the industry requested. My amendments to the communication use category generally relate to communication structures and are as follows. It renames the alternative communication support structure use with communication support structure in the use table because it is unclear what is meant by alternative. And it updates the definition to delete light structure and delete the word supports. Members, I inadvertently left the word alternative in the definition, so I'm proposing a verbal amendment to also delete alternative from the definition of the use to match the use table amendments. My proposal also amends the standard that requires minimizing the visual impacts of communication support structures, including specifying what is acceptable concealment. And it updates the use table to match standards already in Bill 64 FD1 for communication towers, which state that in the industrial zoning districts, a CU minor is required if the zoning lot for the communication tower is adjacent to any zoning lot in the residential, apartment, or AMX zoning district. For DPP, do you have any thoughts on deleting the term alternative from the alternative communication support structure use?
We would support that deletion. From our side, the word alternative was meant to distinguish it from a sole use support structure like a monopole or some other dedicated structure that only supports the utility installation. But deleting it, the definition appears to still be clear of the distinction, so that is fine.
Do you have any thoughts on amendments to the definition and standard for that use?
We have a meeting scheduled on next week with the telecommunications industry, so I'd like to reserve our comments until after that meeting. That said, generally I think we're supportive. I do wonder about the reflective tape and whether or not that is a successful mechanism here in Hawaii. The reflective tape is used to mask panel antennas that are usually up high, and I think the idea is, from the ground, it'll reflect the sky behind it, but here, many of our views are backed by dark mountains, so having something very reflective might have the opposite effect. Currently, we require non-reflective paints for all of these installations for that exact reason. So I'm not sure that that's a successful tool here. We've asked the industry to provide samples for us to test around with, and we have not received those yet. So That's the one concern that I do have.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier at the outset of this meeting, I highly encourage more communication between DPP, my recommendations, as well as the stakeholders, because it is my preference, again, to have all amendments ready for the May 23rd meeting so that we could, my intent is to have a pause in the consideration of Bill 64 before we move on to agricultural uses. So I just hope that your meetings continue and you guys could get me some recommendations. Members, do you have any questions on communication uses before I move to utilities? Councilmember Say.
Elizabeth, are you here? In your testimony, you wanted the city to also try to comply with the federal communication.
Yes, the request was to codify what is existing federal law. It's nicknamed Section 6409.
Okay, would that improve our land use ordinance in regards to communication? Or what's the benefit of codifying the federal law?
Yeah, as we noted in our testimony, actually this recognition was in a previous Bill 10. And so we're requesting that it be reinstated.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, we're going to move on to utilities. With respect to the installation of utility structures and utility uses, the current LUO breaks utilities into two categories. Type A, which is installations of utilities with a minor impact on adjacent land uses, and Type B, those installations with potential major impact by virtue of their appearance, noise, size, traffic generation, or other operational characteristics, and include transmitting antennas in the country, residential, A1 or AMX1 districts, and freestanding antenna structures. Generally, the utility use includes uses or structures, including all facilities, devices, equipment, or transmission lines used directly in the distribution of utility services, such as water, gas, electricity, telecommunications other than broadcasting antennas, and refuse collection other than facilities included under waste disposal and processing. A utility installation may be publicly or privately owned and does not include wind machines, which are defined separately and are separate use. Cesspools, individual house septic tank systems, individual household aerobic units, and individual water supplies. Bill 64 FD1, on the other hand, replaces Type A and B utility uses with three new groups: small, medium, and large utilities, based on the capacity and function of the infrastructure, and creates use standard subcategories within each utility group to address solar energy generation and wind energy generation. Specifically with respect to wind machines, which has received the most testimony on any use in past hearings of Bill 10, the predecessor to Bill 64. Bill 64 incorporates it into utility uses, small, medium, large, as wind energy generation facility. It establishes wind energy generation standards for each size and expressly includes wind generation in renewable energy and energy generation system definitions. Generally, wind energy generation facilities must be set back from all property lines a minimum distance equal to the height of the facility, measured by the highest vertical extension of the facility. Large wind energy generation facilities must be set back a minimum distance of 1.25 miles from the property lines of any zoning lot located in the country, residential, apartment, AMX, or resort zoning districts, provided that the 1.25 mile setback requirement for large wind energy generation facilities only apply to new facilities and do not apply to the repair, maintenance, or component replacement of any existing facility covered by a power purchase contract with an electric public utility during the term of the contract, as well as renewals or extension thereof. Members, no amendments are being proposed for utility uses today, but I would like to get feedback for the May 23rd meeting. specifically about the 1.25 mile setback, the applicability of the requirement on new and not existing facilities, and on power purchase agreement renewals and extensions. I strongly support the 1.25 mile setback for large wind energy facilities, and I've been clear about that during hearings on other standalone bills on this issue, as well as on prior versions of this bill. Before I go to DPP and Corporation Council, members, do you have any questions about what I just said? Either for, we have the State Energy Office here. Yes.
If I may, Chair, ask, if the State Energy Office could maybe just share a little bit more about the proposed language. Particularly, I'm looking at the buffer zone, and if you look, let's say, for example, the turbines that were discussed with Kuku Community Association, is it correct to see that as decreasing the distance? Because if we're going off of the height times 10, it would come down from the 1.25 miles. Is that your understanding, or am I misreading?
10 times the turbine height of the currently installed turbines is roughly equivalent to 1.25. It's not exactly the same, but it's the same ballpark.
Okay, I'll double check those numbers before the next hearing, because I had 0.85, 0.93, and 1.07 miles as calculations, so I don't know how far off those are.
We can double check too.
We'll double check too, but I guess that's just wanted to make sure of that, because when we're having conversations with the community, I just want to make sure the feedback we're taking in, that they're understanding the amendment, so then their feedback can be accurate.
Absolutely. And just to underscore, that number, that 10x, was discussed directly with the community association. So that's where that number comes from. But yeah, it would be good to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay. And maybe just in preparation, was there any negative feedback on the 10-time setback or buffer zone, or was that generally like positive response?
Generally positive. I think there's the issue, one of the issues that came up in our conversation was that the distance alone doesn't necessarily resolve the noise or the shadow flicker issues, and so that's why we've included those specifically. But for the moving to a multiplier was discussed with them and was viewed positively in significant part because it is relative to the height of the turbine. So even if they come in with a much taller turbine, which do exist, much taller turbine, they would still be set back an appropriate distance.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I guess the question I have is, and I'll leave it with this, but I think just so the committee understands kind of what we're sifting through, is that there's folks in the community that acknowledge that there's the remaining portion of the power purchase agreement. And I think under the law, the non-conforming use would still be allowed to continue generally, right? And so there wouldn't be any bar to renewing a PPA. However, I know that if they're contemplating continuing the PPA, they might have to replace some of the turbines there with more up-to-date or newer technology. So even more than just a repair or maintenance, right? And so I think that was kind of the concern, and I may bring it up with DPP too. So that's why I'm just curious if this would result, this language in your mind would result in no further need to revisit the conversation with the community about what future use would entail and what community benefits additionally may be needed, and also could result in larger turbines going in without needing to adjust under the current situation, right? Because it would be acknowledged and brought in as a non-conforming use, even though maybe it would otherwise deviate from that if you're completely taking down the structure and replacing it. Does all that make sense, or do I need to clarify anything?
I think I followed. There's a few issues in there, and one of them is relates a lot to what the Public Utilities Commissions and the Power Purchase Agreement process. For the current procurement process, there is a community benefits component, and that includes, at least so far, repowering. So there's a current conversation for repowering one of the wind farms on Maui, and that must include a community benefits portion, even though it could be argued it's an extension, a long-term extension of the PPA. So the community benefits piece is currently required and would continue, and we're going to advocate and try to make sure that it would continue to be required at the PUC through the procurement process there. So hypothetically, if in 10 years when one of the farms on North Shore needed to be repowered, it would be a new PPA, there would be a new community benefits agreement. So hopefully, I think that addresses part of the question. And then there's also what happens, in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of years under the existing PPA. We're also in discussion with the PUC, and we'll be submitting a white paper to the equity docket there on this subject to try to address some performance standards under the existing arrangements as well.
Okay, mahalo for that, and mahalo for the engaging the community on all this as well.
Thank you.
Chair.
And Councilmember Wire, in preparation for the May 23rd meeting, as we talk about these issues, which I am seeking your input, would be the 1.25 mile setback, new versus existing facilities, and renewals and extensions. Please feel free to have a meeting with the office as well to further discuss some of the issues that you guys discussed. I do have a question for DPP relating to new versus existing facilities. And actually, Corporation Counsel may also need to opine. I'm not clear that we could, even if we wanted to apply the setback to existing facilities with existing power purchase agreements. Can you provide your thoughts on whether that is even an option for us to consider?
Yes, thank you for that question. Typically, we cannot apply more stringent requirements to an existing entitled facility. These operate under conditional use permits and can continue to operate under that permit.
Corporation Counsel, anything else to opine on that?
Dwayne Pang, Deputy Corporation Counsel. No, non-conforming structures can continue. I think there's limitations on repairs per year, but for this particular issue, we would have to look at the conditional use permit and see what kind of restrictions they're on. Yeah.
But you concur that we may not be able to apply any new setback to existing facilities?
Yes, correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And similarly, for both parties, regarding renewals and extensions, if an existing wind energy facility gets a power purchase agreement extension or renewal, do we have the ability to require a modified setback?
A request for an extension like that is not likely sufficient for us to make them deconstruct and rebuild somewhere else, as long as they're continuing to operate within the framework of the conditional use permit.
Okay, so we are not allowed to require a modified setback?
I don't believe so for existing facilities, as long as they keep operating within the CUP approval. But we would have to look at the specific language of each individual CUP if it has a condition that says that it cannot extend its power purchase agreement. But I'm not aware of any such condition. And
okay, and Corporation Counsel, I just want confirmation.
Yes, that's correct. We would have to. We can't require a greater setback. And with respect to extension, as the planner indicated, we have to look at each individual conditional use permit as to what the conditions were.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions on utility use in general? Councilmember Say.
Alex, do you feel that in the future that the county of Oahu will be really run by micro grids? as a planner?
Frankly, I'm not familiar enough with the issue to have a position, so I'm positionless.
Or else, Steve, what are your thoughts as State Office of Energy? Don't you think the future is in all microgrids? Rather than, one big refinery that providing the energy, Waiawa. The thought, how do you like to see the future as a county? Is it going to be dependent upon, just 2 or 3 big producers, H Power, Waiawa Power Plant, Waiawa Power Plant, etc.? I'm looking at it long term now, where maybe the 9 council districts will have their own plan.
For the foreseeable future, and based on the analysis that that the Hawaii State Energy Office has done and the decarbonization pathways report under Act 238 that we recently submitted to the state legislature, as well as HECO's integrated grid plan that they've submitted to the Public Utilities Commission, the most likely pathways for the next couple decades rely on central power plants. It is possible that technology will mature enough and evolve in a way that microgrids become the cheaper, better solution, but that's not the current understanding. Microgrids currently have limited application, but currently we're still going to rely on the central units.
No, I was just thinking that for every home you'll have a energy storage battery, right? And that would be the source of energy for all of us, even though it may be a little costly to the price of housing, but the benefits are out there.
It's roughly 40% of households on Oahu are in multifamily units, and so distributed generation and storage currently is challenging for that. But for people that live in single-family homes, it's certainly an option, and there are financing opportunities to make that a reality.
Well, you should tell the legislature to give some homeowners the tax credits for these batteries.
Members, I did want to propose one final verbal amendment to supplement my proposed amendments in Council Communication 114-2024 in line item 22 relating to the definition of public facility. For clarity, I recommend amending the last sentence of the definition to read as follows. The term does not include private schools, see K-12 schools and vocational schools, private golf courses, see golf courses, and public accessible parks, see publicly accessible parks, non-publicly accessible parks, see non-publicly accessible parks, or community centers, see meeting facility. Members, do you have any other questions or discussion before I make my overall recommendation? The chair then recommends that the CD1 version of Bill 64, 2023 FD1 that was approved by the Planning and the Economy Committee at its meeting on April 4, 2024, be amended to incorporate all of the amendments listed in Council Communication 114-2024, with the exception of the language or wrapping antennas in reflective film in item 11, as further amended to incorporate the verbal amendments we discussed, to amend the vocational school entry and use table 21-5.1 in line item 4 to delete the P in the I2 zoning district, amend the definition of public facility in line item 22 to clarify that public facilities do not include publicly accessible parks and non-publicly accessible parks, amend the definition of alternative communication support structure in line item 24 to delete the word alternative so that the term is communication support structure. And lastly, to make additional technical, non-substantive, and conforming amendments. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, the bill is amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 64, 2023 FD1 CD1 be postponed to the next committee meeting on May 23rd, 2024. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you for everyone for coming today. We're in the audience for this bill and look forward to seeing you at the next hearing. Moving on to the last agenda item, item number 4, informational briefing, update by the Department of Planning and Permitting on its building permit process backlog. For the administration, we have Don Takeuchi Apuna, Director, Department of Planning and Permitting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for this opportunity to provide an update on the building permit process backlog. So this is our usual update chart that provides some information on where we're at as far as residential permits. On the bottom row, it shows that we went up a little bit in the code review time, and I think that's understandable and reasonable because the staff, many of within that area, are working on the different initiatives, whether it's working on the implementation of the new software or the AI code review, et cetera. So it is taking some time from staff, where they would normally do permit reviews. And then for commercial, it looks like we did come down a little bit in the code review, and then approved to issue, that might be more of a, whether the contractor is ready to pick up the permit and to move forward. So we will continue to work on these levels and hope to bring it down in the next several months to more reasonable times. This next slide just gives you some status on the major improvements and projects that we have going on. So Clarity Spurgeon is our new permitting software, and we're approximately within the second of 18 months total. We've completed discovery phase and are now in sprint 1. For the Evolve ePlans upgrade, we had a kickoff last week and are about to start the 6-month process of that upgrade. CivCheck, the AI code review, we are in our 3rd month of the pilot program, and we are currently conducting internal beta testing. For the ICC code reviewers that we are trying to add to supplement reviews internally, we received 2 bids, and so the delivery orders are pending some confirmation on licensing and certifications for those reviewers. And then for Acuity, our consultant that's been helping us with process of improvements, actually I think we are in the 10th month of a 12-month contract. They've set up many SOPs and other process improvements, and that contract will soon expire, but we have definitely gained a lot of progress and process improvements from them. And then lastly, Granicus, the new short-term rental software, we had a kickoff, I believe, this week, and that will be a 6-month implementation. So just to give you a little idea about what some of the things we're seeing early on, CivCheck, the AI code review, which is a guided platform, they have started internal beta testing with the residential plans examiners. And since April 15th through April 26th, when this beta testing was occurring, they looked at 29 residential permit applications, 5 were new construction, 19 were addition or alteration, and 5 were just alteration projects. So this slide gives you an idea of, based on what they're looking at, we can already identify some recurrent issues with plans, and this will be very helpful in us identifying these issues and working with the applicants to address them. And then that can eliminate an additional review cycle, because from the get-go, they'll know exactly what they need to submit. So that's going to help greatly to streamline and educate applicants. Just to give you an idea of what this process, this beta testing is, we've had volunteer applicants where we took their current applications and we resubmit it through the CivCheck platform, and then it comes to our residential reviewers who look at what the platform has produced, and they're kind of checking whether the platform is identifying all the issues that they identify. So it's kind of trying to refine the system altogether. So again, this is really great data for us to look at, and it's going to become more refined as we move forward. And then this next slide gives you an idea. We talk about this a lot, about the quality of plans. So with these 29 applications that were put through the beta testing, only 3.4% had 100% accuracy or could go right through and they would be approved right then. But then you can see the other major percentages that, the percentage rate of review for only 27%, 27.6% for 90 to 99%, et cetera. So again, it gives you an idea of what the type of applications, the quality of applications that are coming in. And we believe that this CivCheck platform will help to make it more of 100% accuracy as they come in. So we will have more information and as this develops, and we're excited about this new improvement. So with that, that's basically my short presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'm looking forward to the next couple of months because I'm confident that in the processes that you guys have underway, including the code reviewers that you guys are going to be hiring, correct?
Correct. Yes.
That we're going to see some progress. Before I open to questions, I did want to ask you about the status of your leadership team, because I know that your Jiro has left, so that was the deputy that is appointed by the mayor. And of course, you have the civil service deputy as well. And given all of this, we want you to have help. So my question to you is, can you provide a status on both of those positions?
Sure, thank you. So for the second deputy position, we are currently conducting interviews. I think there's currently 6 or so candidates that qualified, and they're making their way through. They've done a couple of interviews, and I think, within a few weeks, we'll be able to make that pick.
Are you confident that the caliber of the candidates would meet muster to be able to do a good job?
I am not, I don't think I'm privy to some of the applications, but I do know if they've qualified, that they've met certain standards and requirements. So I think just the number of applicants that we got is very promising. I think we had 9 total that qualified, 6 that decided to sit for the interview.
Okay.
But a good size pool. So I think I'm optimistic about
And
that.
do you get the final say? Who has the final say?
Yes, I have the final say.
That's for the career staff. Okay, what about the other deputy position?
So the other deputy position, we are actively looking at, I'm getting a lot of emails and offers to meet with people, so that's also very encouraging. I think some people want to help DPP, and I think that's really important. So just finding the right fit so that we can manage everything that's going on and be effective and can move forward faster. That's what I'm looking for, and hopefully in the next few weeks we might be able to have someone on board.
Okay, and for that appointment, that is a political appointment, correct?
Yes.
Who has the final say, yourself and the mayor?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that?
So.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Director Takichi Apana. I just wanted to follow up on, when the mayor stayed at the city, he made a big announcement and he kind of put I'm not sure if it's timeline, but he announced that by a certain time, the department would have permits done within a much shorter process. And you've done great work in the time that, even I've been sitting in this seat. But I wanted to get a follow-up to see how that's going. How feasible is that? What are we doing to move towards that goal? I'm not sure if you are aware of that. I mean, it was a surprise for us to hear. But of course, we would like to see that happen. I just want to know if that's actually feasible and realistic in the time you're given.
Thank you, Council Member. Yes, we are completely aligned with what the mayor stated. And I think he said back in March when he had the State of the City, residential would come down within 12 months to 2 or 3 weeks for the DPP review. So that would exclude other agencies or other factors, but the residential review. And then for the commercial, it would be probably longer than that in order to bring it down to, I think, if I recall, like a 6-month or less review. So I believe we are on track. I think it's deceiving looking at the numbers today because, again, everyone is being pulled in different directions to implement all these new projects. So that's why it doesn't seem like we're getting there. But like Council Member, our chair has said, in a few months, I think we're going to see much greater progress. So we're excited. Everyone is doing a lot of work. The staff is working hard to manage all these things plus their day-to-day jobs. So I appreciate all their hard work, but I think we will get there. I think we will meet these goals that the mayor had spoken of.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your update, and good luck with the hiring process. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair Mahalo, Director, for the update. So the civ check would start at the code review step. Is that correct?
Yeah, so actually it's kind of like another pre-check, but pre-check of code. And even that we're kind of discussing with clarity, where does it fit, and even our e-plans. So we believe it's kind of, it is part of a plan review, but we want to see that all of this is done before it goes to the manual review. So we're calling it kind of a code pre-check at this point, but just trying to figure out exactly when and where the applicant touches this part of the review.
I see. So for civ check, it's intended to be reviewed by the applicant, or is it the code reviewer that checks it before they do the manual review?
So when the applicant applies or is creating their plans, they go through the platform, and it's like TurboTax, and that's how they kind of create their plan. And then the platform is checking or making sure that certain codes are being addressed. And then from what I understand, our reviewers go into the system and look at what has happened, and there's areas that are gray where the civ check can't make the call, but our reviewers do. And so that's kind of the process, yeah.
Okay, no, that makes sense, because I'm wondering if it would replace just the pre-screen, and then the applicant knows I got to fix all this, but then you're saying there might be some ambiguity that needs to be manually assessed to then be sent back to the applicant.
Right, yeah, I mean, there will always be, this is what's great about CivCheck that we really like, that it's not that we're just feeding it into a machine and it'll tell us if it's correct. It's guided, so it tells the applicant how to do it, and then with our staff also being able to see the codes and the applicable requirements, that it's also, guiding them. So it's never going to replace, it's just going to make it a lot easier and focused for applicant and staff.
Okay, perfect, I appreciate that, Mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
If there are no other questions, thank you, Director. We will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, we will now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Members, we are in discussion. If there's no further discussion, I just wanted to again thank my staff, the Office of Council Services, and the Council Support Services for continuing to help with moving Bill 64 along. We are going to reach the finish line in a couple of months, but just based on the mouthful of words that I had to say for every single paragraph, you can imagine what it takes to actually have to understand everything that goes into this. So thank you guys so much. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.